we back on. Welcome back. This is Talking Politics with Friends. I am Stevens Orozco, and I am your co-host for this endeavor. We have our other co-host that I'm going to introduce to you shortly, but first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming in and stopping by, and either you're listening on the radio or you are watching us on YouTube. And the YouTube part's the real fun part, because I'm over here just hitting all the different buttons and the camera angles. But I want to thank y'all for showing up and being here, because this is live. This is not a podcast. We are doing this live, and then you can watch the episodes later on. But most importantly, you can interact with us. You will be able to call at the second hour at 8 p.m. at 713-668-1230, the source. We have, our phone waiting right there. It's right there. It's waiting for you to call. So when you get to call, you're going to see the number pop up. It's going to tell you, and that way you can join the conversation. So anyways, back to our show here. I want to introduce my co-host. So first, let's start off with María, Ivonne, Treviño, Rodríguez.
Good evening, everyone.
Ooh, that fan's going to have to turn off.
You can hear it.
Yeah. So, María, how was your week?
It's been lovely. Today was interesting, seeing how all of the primaries went across the state. Excited to talk about that.
Okay. All right. There's plenty to talk about, because I saw some news of election results last night that we're going to have to definitely dive into. All right. And then we also have the one and only Dr. Biko Mandela Gray. Welcome back.
How y'all doing?
I'm doing well. Do that again, because I didn't have you up. There you go.
What it do? How y'all doing?
Oh, there you go. Everybody likes to hear the bass in the voice, so absolutely.
I'm gonna tell y'all really my friends, man. This NBA finals going on right now, and I want to be home watching the game. But this how I know y'all my friends, because I'm over here like, bruh, I need the Spurs to win. Spurs in 6. Six.
See,
not that New York stuff, man.
I'm not watching it because, one, I want New York to win, and I don't want to curse them. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna be like, all right, I'll catch the highlights. That's actually been my position. I'm like, they've been doing good, and I haven't been watching.
I feel you.
Left it alone.
I feel you. No. I watched the first half, and then I stopped watching because I don't want to curse the Spurs. But they won on Monday. And so I'm like, all right, let's do this. I'm super happy. Also, New York fans are kind of trifling, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
I saw Wembayama drawing in a park.
Yes.
And when
Central
my
Park.
partner showed it to me, I was like, I need his jersey.
Yes. Exactly.
I've never bought a jersey for anyone.
Exactly.
And when I saw that picture, I was like, he's my hero.
Exactly. I mess with Victor.
He's been fascinating, but like what I have not been enjoying is seeing how short-tempered he could be, and just kind of do a little extra on the physicality, like more than
if you get punched in the face, in the gut every game, I probably would be swinging on some people too, though, low key. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I know he was with the monks last summer, and that was supposed to increase his mindfulness or whatever, but come on, man. Like,
well, I mean, look, like I said, I haven't been watching the games, so for the most part, I'm trusting that they would show the other hits too, because they usually use context. Like, Wembayama is lashing back out because of this hit.
Jalen Brunson. The Jalen Brunson mush was crazy, but we don't.
How are you gonna push down somebody's like a whole foot shorter than
they
you?
They say Brunson was grabbing the jersey. We're not doing this right now. We're supposed to be talking about politics right now.
No, we're gonna get into it. But all right, so. Anyways, those are our co-hosts, and now we are going to dive into our guest, and I'm excited to introduce this guest because, this is part of the fun part for me doing Friends with Politics, is that I am going through my phone, and whether it's Instagram or my actual contacts, even though my contacts is insane, it's like thousands of people in there that I met over the years, and I don't know how I even look through it. So definitely through Instagram, I'm seeing who I have known and is doing incredible work, and so I get to be like, let me check if they're available. So with that said, I'd like to welcome the one and only Sam Oser, and for a light introduction, journalist and editor, but I would love for you to tell us and our listeners and viewers more about, what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Cool beans. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name's Sam Oser. I am the unconventional journalist. I report on the movements that fight back. Journalism is my activism. It has been my activism for 10 years. Next year will be 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I report on the movements that fight back. Journalism is my activism. We already know everything sucks. We already know that. We don't need another.
It's terrible out here. Yes.
We don't need another newscaster out here telling you about how everything sucks. What I specifically focus on is for every struggle, there is already a movement. So if you're feeling alone in whatever struggle you're experiencing, I report on the movements. So these are the folks that are holding truth to power, who are in community, and I explain to folks how they can get plugged in. So education around the specific topic and how you can get plugged in if that's an issue that you care about. So wasn't always the specific thing. When I first got started, it was a lot more investigative, looking at gentrification in Houston, investigative, looking at campaign finance reports and how it overlapped with city contracts, looking at conflicts of interest within HISD as the takeover was starting to happen in 2017, 2018. The movement was able to delay it, but of course, here we are now. So now my reporting looks like focusing on community members and getting their stories into the archive, getting them into the library archive. So that's my thing now. Unconventional journalist. Google it. You'll find me.
Wonderful. And that's also like a very important role now that is coming up every day in society, in our current society, is independent journalism. Independent journalism has been doing a great job over the past couple of years of replacing the viewership count from like conventional mainstream. Like, they said that this past election was heavy on the YouTube journalism, like affecting, not just the podcast bros and the podcast people, but like independent journalist outlets. The top that I've been watching, and it's been great to see them, become as large as they are now, is Breaking Points. I don't know if you're familiar with Breaking Points. If y'all seen Breaking Points, the hosts, they originally were on The Hill with I forgot what was the name of the group, but like it was The Hill Rising, and then they like were bought out or something like that, and then like they just took them off, so they went on to do their own. It's Crystal and Sagar, and a nice, well balanced, and they put journalistic integrity first, and it's independent media. And it has grown. It's probably the biggest one out of all of them, and they kind of like work in conjunction with like Drop Site News and I forgot somebody else, and it's been great to see. But like now, how does that look like at the local level? And that's one of the reasons why I thought about you, because I know you've been doing this for years. When we met back in the previous platform that we both collaborated on, and just kind of following up with what's going on in Houston is one of the most important things that a journalist could do at the local level. We've had a lot of failed attempts at local media. There was like, I forgot the name of the outlets, but like they will come up with like independent, but then they just kind of shut down after maybe a year or two. And so like, we can't have that. So before we jump into like some of the current stuff going on, you have a project that you're working on that addresses some of the need for local media to kind of like band together and start creating like a bigger, more stronger entity through a coalition building. Like, can you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, definitely. So it is 100% grassroots, community member focused. I'm calling it the Community Journalism Collective. So fancy. And the idea is community members report on their own stories. So the idea is that they have their own publishing practice. They are experiencing systemic issues in real time. They are the expert of what they are experiencing in real time. And they are a primary source. So for all my nerds out there who do research papers and things like that, these are primary sources that are getting overlooked by corporate media. For one reason or another. So this collective is a way to be in community mentorship and collaboration with different members of the community and helping them realize, like, you don't need to have a journalism degree to tell your own story. You don't need a journalism degree to write. We didn't need journalism degrees until after the 1960s. What happened in the 60s? The civil rights movement happened, and suddenly you need a master's to be in a newsroom.
I know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
What was the impetus for that? Do you know, like, why they decided they wanted to turn journalism into like a degree thing in the 60s in the wake of the civil rights? Do you have any sense of that?
So there was so I read the article from The Atlantic, and it's part of my Journalism as Activism 101 workshop. But if we look at that time period in general, the 60s, you know, the Black community was like, you know, civil rights now. And as they were coming into class consciousness and demanding class, human, civil rights, the class warfare started to get stronger, right? So what is a good way to keep Black stories out? Gatekeep it with not having access to
I
college.
see what you mean.
Like a literacy test for voting.
Rice University was free before the 60s.
What?
Oh, okay.
I went to Rice for my PhD. That's crazy. Oh, wow. And it was not free.
Yeah. Colleges were free before the 60s.
Wow.
Right.
And then suddenly, you know, the civil rights movement happens, and they're like, well, if you want to be in any of these professions, you need to have a college degree. And actually now we're not going to make college free anymore. We're going to make it cost an arm and a leg.
You know what's interesting about this? It's why, I mean, this is just a total aside, but I'm thinking about James Baldwin. I'm having to do some work on him right now, and I don't think he got outside of high school. Maybe he went to, no, I don't think he went to college. And so you're absolutely right about not having to go get master's degrees to be able to tell your stories. And one of the best Black writers of the 20th century did not have a college degree, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, yo, and gorgeous. I mean, just, he's a beautiful writer. So I just shared this just to say, like, I didn't know about this, but this is super helpful for people who are paying attention.
Yeah, of course. And part of this collective is that mentorship. And I'm working on making sure we have elders in the movement too. So any media elders as well as like the young TikTokers who, you know, they're doing community journalism. It's on TikTok. It's not like writing, but they're still doing a form of community journalism and putting stories out there. So making sure we have all generations in the room, making sure we're adapting for each other. And it's all centered around food. It's like we're going to be having our first potluck at the end of June. And I think the key of it, and I don't know how this is going to shape and what it's going to turn into, the key of it is everybody has their own publishing practice. We can work with each other, collaborate with each other, intersect where it makes sense. But everybody needs to have their own writing, storytelling, podcasting, TikToking practice.
Okay.
So I'm really excited for it because I've also built a pipeline to make sure if they wanted to, they could archive their work into the library. So that way research nerds 20, 30 years from now, when they're researching flood stuff, flood control, gentrification, things like that in Houston, they're not just seeing corporate media. They're seeing primary sources.
Do y'all know if we kept our stories from way back when? I keep asking. Do y'all know if we kept our... I know we hold the stories in our memory, but I don't know if we ever wrote them down. Do you all know? I'm curious. Like, did we ever write them down? I know I wrote certain pieces on Medium, but that wasn't...
Right. No, I mean, I know I self-published a book.
I know you did that book. Yeah, you did that book.
I did that, and then I have writings from that time that I never, like, published, which I'm actually going through right now and, like, seeing how I could put into this bigger work that I want to, create. But besides whatever we were posting and, like, filming and all that, like...
We were moving so fast.
Yeah,
man. I kind of wish... And part of me wants... I mean, you were talking about telling stories, and we all have this sort of incredible story of flipping this county, in 2016. But also some of the nasty stuff that happened up... I mean, we shouldn't be airing out, but you know what I mean? Like...
Right.
It provides information for future organizers and people who study social movements.
Yeah.
So that they can see, one, how we succeeded, but two, all of the barriers that we had, both within ourselves and our community,
1000%.
in order to succeed.
That's so true.
And see, like, the main difference to me with community journalism versus corporate journalism or establishment journalism, and, like, I went to school for journalism, so one of the first things I was taught is things have to be timely. You know, if it happened on a Tuesday, it needs to be published by Thursday.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
That's how timely things need to be so it can be in the news cycle. With community journalism, I Can I cuss here?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well,
Just 1 second. I got it. Go ahead.
well, I call bull on the timeliness of it, because for me that removes the intentionness of it.
Yeah.
Like, I firmly believe it is okay for you to do a community article piece on something that happened a few months ago or a few years ago, because journalism in itself is a form of archiving. When research nerds go to the library and look up things, what do they look up? They look up newspaper clippings, right? So it is totally okay if it's not timely.
I'll also argue there are very few instances where a documentary is being made as the thing is happening.
It's true.
You know, many times it's the thing happens and people realize, we should have a retrospective. We should think through exactly how this happened and pull all the pieces together so that we can tell this story.
Yeah.
It's very hard to think, I need to tell this story while you're living it in the moment.
That's so true. I mean, I think about, what's wild about this is I was thinking about the Sandra Bland documentary that kind of happened in real time, and there was a whole bunch of misinformation that was sort of caught up in that, which was, and so I think you're absolutely right that we do, like, taking time matters, right? It's, and I'm thinking about this, of course, as, I've written a book too, and so, it takes time to let those ideas germinate. It takes time for me to figure out what writing style I want to do, what voice I want to have, and so, all of that, it takes time.
And it takes experience.
It does.
To be able to look back and see things through a different lens.
Exactly.
Today, I would write a very different book about what we did in 2016 than I would have written in 2020 or 2018 or even in 2016.
In real time. No, you are absolutely. And we were on the go. I think that's the thing that I don't. Sorry, we've known each other for a while.
No,
so yeah,
please.
but we were on the go. I mean, y'all remember? I mean, it was meeting after meeting. Where are we at? Which coffee shop we meeting up at?
Right.
And you just felt like,
and then all the debriefs.
Listen,
right? Because, at city council, like, who's gonna go to city council?
Right.
Which usually it was me. I was gonna be
exactly.
I was gonna be standing in the back, directly in front of the mayor. May he rest in peace. Right.
Yep.
He was just, and there would be seats.
Yep.
I wouldn't sit down. I'll be
You
all
would
the way
not
back.
sit down.
And then somebody else had to go to a different meeting. There was a community meeting.
County commissioners.
Yeah.
County commissioners. There was all these different things. And then we'd be like, all right, let's all gather. Sometimes we'll be able to gather at a coffee shop and then just debrief. What did you see here? What did you see there? It was just like this.
What's coming down the pipe? All that type of stuff. All that. What debates
And I
showing
will
up?
say, we maybe weren't writing journal entries or,
Right.
vocal recordings of what was happening.
Yeah.
But I have a bunch of agendas.
Oh, dude.
I have a bunch of
really?
strategy docs.
Oh.
And I keep all of that.
Primary sources.
Exactly.
I'm very meticulous about my Google Drive.
Primary sources
if
is
anything,
crucial.
that
Yeah.
is there.
You know what's crazy about this too? I was talking to someone who was part of the Ferguson uprisings, right? And I mean, we can't cuss on here, but I am about to air a little bit of dirty laundry. So like, there were some people who showed up right after Michael Brown got killed, and they showed up like a week after. And I was talking to someone who was on the ground at the time in Ferguson, and they were like, the people who were in front of the cameras were not the actual organizers that were actually doing right. So like, I'm not trying to shade him out, but DeRay McKesson showed up, and I think he was genuine, but he showed up he just happened to show up at the right time. And a lot of the organizers on the ground at Ferguson were like, we don't know you like that.
I'll also argue corporate media tends to choose the person that they think is most palatable.
That's true too.
So let's and at the moment I never thought of it. I thought he was very charismatic.
Exactly,
blah, blah,
all
blah.
the thing.
But now I think about it and I'm like, of course they didn't hand the mic to an actual organizer. They would have been afraid of what they were going to say.
Right. And let's not forget the blue vest.
I mean, it became a brand, right? I mean, all right. Now, I wasn't trying to go like fully down that road, but like,
I mean, listen, I had a beanie and the same sweater every time. I mean, it is what it is. When you're out on the go, you're on the go. But the thing that didn't make sense is like that was like a winter outfit thing that he wore all the time. So,
in the summer.
I took the beanie off in the summer. So.
Yeah, it was too. It was also, I think, and I think he got. I mean, this is the difficulty, and this is why I do appreciate like community journalism, like people telling these stories from their perspective on the ground, because what I think he particularly, DeRay got caught up in the media. I mean, he's handsome, he could speak well. You know, he had all, and so they turned him into this like liberal darling. I don't know if he really wanted. I don't know if that was actually his.
Exactly. I'll argue that sometimes the media will turn you into that without your
exactly.
approval.
And then next thing you know, you're doing, you know,
like I feel like Chris Smalls is the next thing
where
they're trying to
yes.
they're trying to put, you know, find anything, make sure they make him not seem like a true organizer who speaks on behalf of his union brethren. But I read other articles where they're like, you're trying to smear him so that he loses the power that they need in order to fully win.
I hope they don't win that, because he got it out the mud. Like, he was in the trenches, and I hope that genuinely nobody like turns him, or, you know, like he ends up on the wrong, I don't say the wrong side, but I hope he doesn't become some sort of like liberal media. The other piece I was thinking about too, and I'm going to stop talking about this, but I was just thinking about it. The other piece I was thinking about too is when you're talking about mainstream media. So you talk about like looking through archives and stuff. And so I'm working on some stuff from the 1900s, from the 1800s and 19th century or whatever. And so much of the newspaper clippings from those times were ideological propaganda for the state, right? That what they were really trying to do was prop up, at the time, the slaveholding, imperialist, colonialist state, right? And while we quote unquote don't have slavery anymore, mainstream media still maintains that disposition as sort of not necessarily state run, but they will shift the story in a way that I feel like I'm curious how you do this kind of work when you're talking. It seems to me that you're not interested in playing some state line or trying to maintain some sort of like, oh, let's maintain the institutions. It sounds like you really just want to tell the stories that are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't my job. There's no money tied to this. This is my activism. This is how I serve the community. And, you know, I understand. I went to school for journalism. I almost did the journalist career thing. But when I saw that there were a handful of corporations that owned most of our media, and I was going to be getting paid $50,000 a year to work weekends, I was like, why?
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing, because now, and that was back then, because now it's like even less, a smaller handful of billionaires own all the outlets right now. I mean, the Ellisons right now are trying to finish that acquiring of like Warner Brothers and HBO Max and like all these other like outlets that are attached to that. So, you know, we pretty much can't even see how mainstream media has any diversity at all, because the ownership is not diverse.
Right.
Who was that white guy who had a talk show and he was removed from his talk show because he got too political and was talking about Donald Trump?
I mean,
not Jimmy Kimmel?
Maybe it was a Jimmy.
Jimmy Kimmel?
Well,
I don't know.
It was a Jimmy.
Jimmy
I mean, yeah, there's two situations, the big ones, right? It's Stephen Colbert,
and
who
Jimmy Kimmel,
it was, I think,
who show had to wrap up. They didn't renew his contract,
Right.
but it was after the whole stuff that he started talking about Trump and like how his parent company was dealing with Trump, right?
So I bring him up because I'm like, if they can't palate what he's saying,
right,
you know they're not going to palate what an organizer is saying,
1000%,
who's like pointing to the problem and saying, look, you actually can't politicize this because it's a lived experience. I think that's why I really like what Sam is doing. Like, you're practically you're busting myths every day on what the issues are.
Well, and the thing is too, so one of my so I came from Truth Against the Machine and Status Quo. Status Quo is still around. You can find them on YouTube, Google. They do amazing on-the-ground coverage. But when we first launched Status Quo, we had an immediate YouTube shadow ban.
Wow.
Immediate. And my mentor at the time, Jordan, he still runs Status Quo. It's his media outlet. He was like, well, when I first started doing YouTube back in the early 2000s, it was so easy to grow this platform. But the algorithm catches up and it shadow bans you. And then you have to figure out how to break the algorithm. So because I do love these things, I also happen to be in marketing studying algorithms. So if you get shadow banned, you need to break your algorithm to get unbanned. So some of the things I do for myself when I get shadow banned, because it happens, and you can tell when you get shadow banned. You don't get as many views on your stories. You don't get as many likes on your posts. Suddenly you just don't feel seen. So what you do
as of like 2 weeks ago for me now.
Yes, yeah. So what you do is you log out of your Instagram for like 2-3 days, whatever app you're using, whatever social media app. And I know, oh my God, logging out of social media for 3 days, it's so hard. But you know what? It's good for your mental health too. So
True.
Take it with breaking the algorithm and for your mental health. So just log it off. Don't touch it for 3 days. That resets it. If you need like a short reset, just take pictures of normal everyday things. Instagram Meta loves pictures. So take pictures of things. Sometimes I'll take a picture of my face and I'll be like, it's an offering for the algorithm. And then and it works, because then like what I used to get like 10 story views, it's suddenly up to 80. And then my favorite thing to do, and I mostly do this for myself, I take a social media break once a year where I do not get on it for a month. I take it off my phone. I uninstall the app. If you want a very quick like way to get on shadow ban, uninstall the app from your phone for 2 days and then reinstall the app. Don't just log off, uninstall that baby. But I'll uninstall it for a month and only access it Y2K style, like on the laptop. And then after my break, I get back on and it's like 200 views per story, 100 likes on a post. So you have to be aware of the algorithm, how to break it, how to overcome the shadow bans and things like that.
Well, those are good notes too, because I'm really starting to dive back into posting on the regular, because for the most part, over the past, I would say 6 years, I kind of like just focus on, if I had a project, here you go, post it about it, here's a different platform where you can find it, and then I'll leave it alone. Maybe I'll do some photo shoots, but then like the kind of posting that I used to do consistently when I was either organizing or my first go around with radio, like that had completely stopped for years. So now that I'm diving back in, it's good advice to follow, because I'm trying to figure out how I can reach the most people, because I'm really going like on the basic reach one, teach one type of thing. Like, hey, make sure you follow, subscribe, and tell somebody else to follow, subscribe, and then like hopefully that creates and generates activity, and then I would say after 6 months and a year you can see some results. But we have to fight against the algorithm, because unfortunately these media companies have figured out that social media is too powerful to just let loose, and you gotta like restrain it with ads and algorithms. Because I remember when we was organizing, like Facebook was a free-for-all, and it was like we were posting and everybody was sharing it, and then we were just seeing all this activity, and then things would happen, people would show up to the events and all these
Organizing
things.
on Facebook was another thing.
Yo, that was a time.
It was kind of easy.
Yeah, it actually pretty.
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Because it had all the posts chronologically.
Yeah.
So you could, and even Instagram, you could be sure that you had seen everything. Now they feed you what they want you to see, and it just kind of ruins your power of being able to get the audience captive, because they're gonna see your stuff no matter what.
I wonder too, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, Sam, as well. I wonder, because I'm thinking about our time, right, and how there were so many, like you remember that debate where Stevens, you remember that debate with Ron, whatever his name
Hickman.
was.
Ron
Hickman and what was it? Jesus.
Ed Gonzalez?
Yeah, Gonzalez. And you remember you and I walked up to Ron after.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the question line, that was a local televised.
Was a wild.
That was locally televised debate. It was live.
We'll have to find the archive.
We will need to,
because they definitely, gave me a prepared question, and I just put that in my pocket.
He did not ask
and
it. I knew you did too.
And I asked him about some white supremacy type of stuff, and then he just kind of got like, and just it was over after that. And then after
that's what I was
debate,
saying. Yeah, that was the thing.
You approached them because this is the current. That was at the time. That was the current sheriff.
Yep.
And so you peppered them with some questions.
But that was the thing that I was talking about. We talking about Facebook being chronological. Like this is the tricky thing I think with social media. You're talking about the algorithm too. You know, I don't know when this happened, and someone's probably already done the homework on this in terms of the last 15 years or so of the decrease in trust of mainstream media, right? Like people were turning to social media to get their news more and more and more. I think I really started doing it around 2014 after Michael Brown was killed. Like that's when I was like, I got to be on Twitter. I got to be on Facebook. I've got to see what's actually happening because CNN's not going to do this quick enough, you know? So there was a way that, and I bring it up because you're right. At the time, the algorithm was chronologically based. So when we did that thing against Ron Hickman, it's like, I don't know, you posted it probably.
It was like about between 15 and 20,000 views.
And I'm
that's
like,
just local level.
That was, that was quick. Like, and I think when you posted, like, when did you post it? Like, what, like that night? I don't remember when you posted it.
It was that night.
And we ended up the next day. It was, so I shared this to say, like, I think you're right. When we had Facebook made organizing easy because you could see everything in real time and it could be chronologically sort of done. And I think now you're right. The algorithm has changed, and so we have to find other ways to. And yet, people aren't paying attention as much to mainstream media anymore, and so social media becomes the way that people are getting their news. And so we have to find ways to manipulate that. And I'm saying that to say to affirm your project and affirm the work that you're doing.
Well, and like as social media users, you can break your own algorithm too. Like I'm talking about, you know, as like a poster, like fixing my shadow ban. But as a person, like you're just a normal person sick of your algorithm, you can change your algorithm at any given point. Any given point. Every social media platform has a search function. So if you're tired of seeing the same stuff, go to your search bar in your social media app, type in whatever it is you want to see, engage with those posts, do it a couple of times, and your feed will change. If you want like notifications from a specific person, make sure you like hit that bell. Not just YouTube, but Instagram has it, Facebook has it. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm pretty sure TikTok has it as well. But like you can change your algorithm at any given point. If you're tired of seeing CNN, you can press on it and say unfollow, limit posts from this. And when I get to the point where my search feed is more than what I can handle, I go in, I type in herbs, and then I go interact with herb videos.
Herbs. I mean, I ain't gonna front. I be doing cats. You know, like,
cats is your search when you want to search things.
I mean, yeah, because cat videos are funny, and I have some cats, you know, at this point, and dogs, but like, you know, anything with animals really, because I be talking to animals. But
like, you can change your algorithm at any point, and as you're changing your algorithm, your ads will change as it perceives you. And it will, and it's going to be bizarre and funny and amazing. And you'll see how changing the algorithm, it changes its perception of you.
Okay. Well, with that, I think it's a great time to do two things. One, remind everybody that at 8 p.m. you could call in and join in. It'll be right here. The phone is ready. The phone lines will be open, and you'll be able to call in and join the conversation. Because even though we've been talking for the last like 10, 15 minutes about the algorithms and how to use social media, the social media shadow bans and all that, because of what journalists are covering, what you are sharing that may not be appealing to certain media entities or establishment politics, how does this all tie into talking politics with friends? Is because right now you are watching this and you're going to want to share this with somebody, and the topics that we're going to be covering, especially the local stuff right now, may get us shadow banned some more, may get you shadow banned. So we have to know how to navigate around these things, because, you know, being able to have this access to information is vital at this point of our society, and, you know, it's part of the work. So, you know, join us in resisting this algorithm. So, Sam, we have to talk about the local dynamics going on with city council, because one of the fights that you've been covering has been the budget fight. And one of the big champions of this fight is Chris Hollins. He's been doing this amazing social media push, all the different types of posts, some humor in it, but also some very stern language about, and he just calls the bill garbage, right? So I want to like ask you about, like, so far in your knowledge and anything that you looked into it, like what are the dynamics that you've been picking up from this current, like, is this all a genuine Chris Hollins wants to use this as his issue that is getting attention for a future run to something else, or is this like a legitimate, like, you know, grassroots effort that's building up, and he just happens to be the guy that has the biggest megaphone? Like, what's your perception of it?
So honestly, I don't follow politicians.
Oh.
I don't know what Chris Hollins is posting about. I don't know what he's saying. I don't care. I really don't care. I've been following the people going to city council. I've been following West Street Recovery. I've been following Northeast Action Collective. I've been following DSA, and the HTX budget group. That is
HTX People's Budget.
Yes.
You can find them on Instagram.
On Instagram, and they're the ones I've been following. Yeah, and from what I can tell, they're not too happy with anything that's going on. Most times they get kicked out of city council.
Right. I saw they did this new concept that was like the red card. Like they I don't know, they took it from football in the World Cup, where it's like now they're at the city council meetings, and if they are saying something that they're not in favor of, they're just putting up a red card.
Yes.
So that's, you know, that's creative activism and organizing. So yeah.
Yeah, and they've been at the budget stuff for a couple years now, more than a couple of years. It started off with flood mitigation and flood control, specifically around drainage, because Northeast NAC, Northeast Action Collective, they have a lot of drainage issues. Their toilets, they have toilet geysers.
Oh my God.
Like,
oh wow.
There's this one woman, Sade, I had interviewed a little while ago. She's now part of the Community Journalism Collective. But she had told me about how the drainage was so bad in her neighborhood that her toilet would just go up into a geyser, just randomly. And she felt a lot of shame, and she didn't want to have people over. And she felt like that for a few years. Well, eventually she started talking to her neighbors, and her neighbors were experiencing the same things. So then she joined Bayou City Waterkeeper, and it's been overlapping with the Northeast Action Collective work and drainage and whatnot. So those are the stories that I mostly focus on. Any politician, I'm assuming they're trying to get out ahead. I don't trust any of them. They might be championing the grassroots movement. They might be saying the right things.
Right.
But I haven't looked at the campaign finance reports for these guys, because when I did campaign finance report stuff in like 2017, none of the organizers used it. I pointed out which oligarchs were funding which city council members and which oligarchs had city contracts. And organizers at the time did not use the information, so I stopped providing it. But I promise you, if you go into Chris Hollins' campaign finance reports, who's funding him? And that's what the question always comes back to me is like, okay, were you a grassroots campaign to begin with? Will you be a grassroots campaign after? So I don't really know what he's doing.
Okay.
Well, tell us a little bit about what the folks are doing at City
Yeah,
Hall.
we'd love to hear more
fighting
about
for
that.
a more fair budget.
So they are over there. They've been demanding flood rights mitigation. They've been demanding for living wage for city workers, because city workers aren't getting paid crap. They have a list of demands, and then they've been doing campaigns to get people involved. So the main campaigns that they have is for folks to call their city council members relentlessly, email them. They show up every week at city council meetings. They showed up today. Today was I believe it was the last meeting for the vote. I don't know if they were able to get it delayed or not.
No, they voted.
They voted? How'd it go?
1 to 15.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
who
Edward
was it?
Pollard was the only no vote. I believe Tiffany Thomas abstained. She wasn't there. And the 15 others voted alongside Mayor Whitmire. Terrible, terrible news.
And you know, and I'll say this. I'll be the bad guy, right? And I don't want this to be a call out. We're going to start using the term call in. I'm going to call you in, right? Because Tarsha Jackson's still city council member, right?
Is
Yes,
she
she
for real?
is.
Is she was she District D?
Oh, she's been one of the biggest disappointments in my experience.
don't.
Just simply because we know her from organizing.
That's what I was about
She
to
worked at the
say.
Texas Organizing Project.
Right.
See, and that's what I'm saying. Like, once they get into city council roles, you cannot trust them.
It's tough. I mean, 15 of them voted alongside the mayor. I will say some of them consider themselves progressive. You know, I mean, we have, I would say, a majority Democrats on the city council.
Right.
Although all of the city council members who were Democrats voiced their concerns, they all still voted yes.
Right. And this is where, like, last week, if anybody was, like, if anybody remembers, like, I made this joke about, like, after coalition broke up, we stayed friends, right? You know, because there was this clear moment, like, a month after the coalition had achieved this goal of getting rid of Ron Hickman and Devin Anderson, the two Republicans that were sheriff and DA. And then there was that press conference that Mayor Turner put together to just basically announce that there's new office, but they really just renamed the office to something else. And among those people in the press conference were some of those coalition members who also happened to be Tarsha Jackson. At that time, she was the head of TOP, Texas Organizing Project. And she wasn't very fond of my reaction of them being there because I disrupted the press conference. But then, like, a couple years later, I saw that she ran. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is why she, you know, did all this, like, you know, compromising and working towards, like, you know, just getting something going, because her story is compelling, right? I think it was her son that had an issue with like police brutality or something like that, and like it prompted her to like be more involved, and she like climbed up the ranks in Texas Organizing Project, and now she's a city council member. But then, like, you know, when the police budget went up a couple years ago, she was a yes vote.
Yeah.
And so that's where, like, I have to, like, say, like, you know, Sam, I understand what you're saying, where it's like you can't trust none of them. Even once they get into office, it's like they flip. And it's like...
Well, and the thing is, too, is like, so I report on movements that fight back. So today I was interviewing the War Tax Resistance, which is going to come out later this week. So I wasn't able to follow what happened at City Council today. So reporting on the movements that fight back, it's very surface level for me. And that's why I'm trying to get folks to report on what's happening on their communities. Could you imagine if we had someone writing like on the beat what was happening, the budget week to week?
Yeah, unfortunately, I got my news from the Houston Chronicle. And the thing about the Houston Chronicle is that they use quotes specifically stated during the city council meeting, but they use specific quotes to move their own agenda forward. And so depending on whether or not they like a candidate, or I guess a city council person, they'll portray them as sincere or insincere. And so it's very upsetting, because I have some gripes about some of the city council members who voted for the budget because they consider themselves the furthest left, so progressive. And yet they're still making these decisions and then just stating a caveat, adding a little apostrophe. And it's just not enough to, you know, give a list of all the concerns you have and then say yes.
And the Houston Chronicle isn't going to hold them to that level of accountability.
No, because they just endorsed them.
Yes,
so it would have to mean that they're admitting their own fault, that they've endorsed candidates that aren't necessarily the candidates that they portrayed to the voting electorate.
And this is where community journalism really plays in, because, like, especially if it's as your activism, you can really step in, not only report on the week-to-week shenanigans of the budget happenings that are happening as a community organizer and on the ground, since you're already at city council advocating, but you can also hold truth to power in that way. Like if you're already at city council advocating for your community, please write about it.
I've seen people mostly do videos.
Right,
Like
videos.
I think it's a lot of video reporting, and my concern with that too is that the power lies in one person, and so it becomes a movement of one. I can't explain it, but there's like celebrity activists in our city.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so that's what I'm kind of trying to.
Well, and the thing
Is
is,
there?
there's always
you
been.
mean?
There's
All right,
always
Steve.
been.
What-
And also the thing with video, it's very short form. It doesn't put as much information into it as possible, and they're not quoting other people.
Right,
They're
right.
not bringing other people into the fold,
Right.
and I think that's where like the check and balance goes. But like if it was more long form, even if it is a video, interview your other community members.
I like that.
Oh,
I've never. Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad that you're teaching people to do that.
please.
I'm just thinking about like longer form video essays, and I'm listening to you, and I think you're absolutely correct on this. I mean, but this is something that I've actually, because I'm a teacher, so part of what I've been thinking about is literacy, and as I'm listening to you, and this isn't a pushback so much as a question, like how we're in a media consumer landscape where the viral clip from the person sitting at the city council, right? They say this one interesting thing that is super exciting. It goes viral. It's 30 seconds. You don't have real context for it. And then the comments fill up and it's like, someone protect this person because they've said something amazing. They've spoken. But you miss a lot of context when you're doing these short form 30-second, short reels. And I'm curious, how do you feel like that's a challenge in terms of like the work that you're doing, or do you feel like, listen, like I'm gonna do this long form thing regardless of who reads it, who does? Like, I'm genuinely curious, like, or do you ever get concerned, like, listen, people aren't gonna read the longer form thing?
No, I don't care. Like so even though like I do marketing as my day job, if you look on my Instagram or any of my social footprint, I do no marketing for myself. I'm not going to edit short clips. I'm not going to edit little tidbits. I'm not going to say follow me. I'm not going to do any of that, because the long form, the work, like when you're creating this work, when you're interviewing members of your community for a video, for an article, whatever, who is it for? Who is it for? Typically those short clip things, those things that go viral, those are typically for corporate stats. Like, these are the statistics. This is how much, what's it called? Media revenue it generated. And then from there, here's how many subscribers we got. You know, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the data. They're looking at the funnel of it. They're not just doing the work for the community for the sake of doing the work for the community. And when you go, so like, you know, I was whining earlier about how I did my campaign finance report stuff in 2017 and no one looked at it.
Right.
When I was interviewing the budget folks, when I was interviewing Felix about a month and a half ago when this campaign kicked off, I was like, look, here are the oligarchs you're up against. I know you see the city council, and I know this campaign finance report corporate tentacle map is from 2017, but I guarantee you these oligarchs have not changed. If you guys want to do any work into updating this, I'm happy to mentor. I'm happy to educate. But I'm not going to be doing the work.
Right.
Because I already did it, and where was everybody?
I love that stuff. I actually technically work in campaign finance.
Right.
So if they ever need any help, I'd be happy to support.
Yes, and see, and like, you know, I have my journalism as activism 101 workshop, and then that's the baseline for activating community members into telling their own stories. Like, I was really hoping, I know Emily and Jason, they kicked off a HTX budget note-taking session to like recruit folks to take notes. as the budget sessions were happening, and that in itself is community journalism. I didn't see if anything came out of that. Did you see?
Well, I feel like that's mostly making sure that everyone's informed, because a lot of what happens at city council, one, is wonky. The meetings are long. So to me, I think the work is just making sure it's there, and if anybody wants to read through every single vote and what people said, at least somebody has put it down publicly and doesn't have to watch the long form video.
But that's what journalism is. You know, like there's these things called beats, right?
Yes.
And each journalist has a different beat. There's a journalist that goes to city council every week and writes about what happens. That's it, so that they don't have to go through the CCTV.
I guess the issue with corporate journalists is that they'll only, write about the part that they think and in the way that they believe it should be written, which oftentimes.
And that's why I'm here advocating for community journalism.
Okay. And the mission remains true. We're going to be part of that growth, like staying in touch and being able to just follow what you're doing, being able to bring you back on, and also just like be aware of what events and everything's going on. Like we want to make sure we keep that network growing, and the work is necessary because we have to be able to have trustworthy information being gathered and not filtered through like corporate interests and all the others. But I want to ask you something, Sam. You have me like reflecting on your attitude about politicians and not keeping up with them. Like, let me ask you this quick question to like kind of package the thought. Are you still voting?
Barely.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's finally a precinct chair in my neighborhood. There used to not be one. And she's been doing some organizing work. I did not vote in the primary. I was like, I've been voting in the primary and caring about the primary for so many years. I'm tired. With that said, I was helping her stuff envelopes for the runoffs. And I did see Anise Parker had made it into the runoff. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. So I took my happy little butt to go vote to make sure to help her not win.
Right.
At the very least. I will say the most exciting vote I've ever had. I felt like Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation.
Aww.
Like, it was the most heartfelt vote I have ever had in my life. It was this year. It was for mud taxes. My precinct chair had made me aware that the mud area that we were in were going to start charging us for undeveloped land.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Start charging residents for undeveloped land. And I was like, absolutely not. And it was the only thing on the ballot. There was nothing else on the ballot except for that. So I went and voted, and that is the most I ever felt like my vote mattered.
And I think what I wanted to get at is because I believe you're a representative of the disillusioned voter, the independent voter, and the questions of like, how do we get them to come back in? What is it that is required? Is a very important question in today's political discourse. It's like, how do you have successful voter outreach to a disillusioned generation, right?
You gotta bridge the worlds. So, like, the political consultants that do campaigns are so far removed from actual people. Texas is not a red state. Texas is a purple state. And the reason I say that is because we're like number 46 in voting. That is a disillusioned, disinterested voting populace. If we were like number 3 in voting, I don't know which way we'd go.
Right.
I have no idea. But yeah, I mostly voted, and I vote in the general election. I just like close my eyes, hold my nose, do the thing. But this year in the primary, I was like, no, I'm done.
I want to hop in here too, just to thinking about the disillusionment piece. That was, going full circle. I think Chris Hollins ran for something. He's city controller now, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's an you all know I'm just got back here. That's an elected position, or it's a
Elected.
Okay. So he's probably going to run again. Or I bring this up because I do think that is the disillusioned voter is what I think a lot of politicians should be going for, but I think you're right. And I in certain ways I'm about to echo you, but in other ways I'm just going to sort of add on to what you're saying is, yeah, we need to, I mean, we were talking about Tallarico and other people needing to bridge worlds. It's also, and Maria, you were talking about this last week, it's also this question of genuineness and sort of legibility and authenticity in a very real way that I think that like a lot of politicians come off and they don't feel genuine to a lot of disillusioned voters, right? And so,
well, there's like a class gap as well.
Oh, and there's definitely that too. I mean, I think you're absolutely spot on
like,
about.
I think if any of the politicians running spoke genuinely about class warfare, they might get my attention.
Well, I mean, you have some that are starting to do that more and more, right? The class warfare part. Tallarico is, doing it through like like it's not a what is it like a
billionaires? He's going against the billionaires.
Well, it's not like the bottom up.
It's not the us against each other. It's us against the top, something like that. The bottom against the top.
Right. So, it's not left versus right. Right. It's top versus bottom, right? Mm-hmm. And that's an important like distinction to make, and it may really be the successful strategy. We've been having, every episode we had so far, we've talked about the Tallarico dynamic and how Texas plays into that, and then how his lack of outreach for, like, let's say, for example, the black vote and Latino vote. I don't know if he thinks he's just got that in the bag because of like his Christianity, right, and all these other like things that are appealing maybe to a more Catholic community. But like overall, the conversation politics of like what's being successful, and this is going to bring us into the second hour and for calls to come in, is this populism that now has us looking at candidates as like, do we want to go ahead and like ride this populist message, no matter who this candidate is, they're saying the right things, because you have Tallarico here in Texas, but you also have Graham Plattner in Maine.
That was I'm glad you brought that. I'm curious to hear what people have to say about Plattner, and the question becomes, do the optics outweigh the discourse around his policies, right? Because he clearly is a person who has this populist message, and it's the Democratic Party's gambling here. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he wins in the general, but he is speaking that class, that populist message. But I guess, and this is the nerd in me. There is populism as a sort of rhetorical strategy, and then there's the discourse of class warfare. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm thinking about George Jackson. I'm thinking, he said things. I'm thinking about folks who like read up on how class is at a material level something that can unite people, right? And that's hey, yo, you can't pay your bills because capitalism has ruined things for you, is a different move than, you know what, like it's bottom versus top, like the
exactly, because Trump is a populist.
That was the other piece that I was going to say too, right? Exactly.
I feel like you can get both flavors of populism.
1000%.
I think when you actually talk about class warfare, you have to be. I've read that he was a labor organizer,
right,
part of a labor union. So I'm assuming he's using the language and the vocabulary that someone who was in a union would, which is, corporate interests. Individuals are not receiving the cut that they deserve.
Right.
Shout out to Pete Terry's. Apparently, they have turned their company into an employee-owned company moving forward. So all like 1,800 of their employees are now own a stake of steak, nice. A burger of the wealth, and which is kind of nice. I didn't expect a Texas company to do something like that. But I guess what I'm getting to is just, you can be a populist and still be a fascist, and a lot of fascists were populists.
Hitler was a populist. Like,
I don't know. Exactly.
That's
so
true.
All right, so we're about to dive into this dynamics, and I'm gonna catch up Sam on the full dynamics of it, because I just learned 20 minutes ago that you're not following any politicians, so
I don't
you really
follow politicians. Congratulations. It's not my string.
Right. So, and I want to like get your perspective from what we were able to discuss, but I do want to point out to everybody that we are now in the 8 o'clock hour. So feel free to call in at 713-668-1230. That is 713-668-1230, and you can discuss any of these dynamics we're talking about locally, also some of the national conversation we're about to have. But as we have this number up for folks to call in,
I do have a question for Sam.
Oh yeah, no, like go ahead.
Speaking of your reporting on local movements and us often talking about politics and local politics specifically, how do you think that local movements today wage when it comes to political power? Specifically when you see the organizations that you just saw in city council advocating, being creative with their advocacy, pushing city council to really respect the needs of Houstonians by ensuring that a budget that reflects their needs is prioritized. Today, I would say in 2026, I see the most people attending city council meetings and county commissioners meetings from any other year.
Yeah.
We were the first people to ever attend one. And I remember Judge Ed Emmett specifically telling me, I've never had someone from the community come in here and be disrespectful like this. And I was like, I'm surprised, to be frank. And that kind of opened the floodgates. Today, it's a normal way of organizing.
Yeah.
Everybody uses these spaces to voice their concerns and to kind of push the needle. What do you feel is missing so that community organizations that are doing the organizing actually get the political power that they need to make sure that when they're at city council every day, they don't still get a 15-1 vote? Do you think that what's missing is getting the information to the masses? Is that why you are starting your collective?
That's a good question. So when I first started my work, I really thought, dang, if I expose what's going on, people will care.
Sorry.
I had the same.
We all. That's why I think that's why I laughed. I was like, man, like we all had that experience.
We all
Like,
had that.
like you put it out there, people will like be involved.
They must be angry.
They must be angry. Like, I remember, like, one of the most infuriating articles I ever wrote. There was these activists out of Memorial City that found a falsified flood map. They found a falsified flood map. They hired a hydrologist to verify that it was a falsified flood map. They took it to the Harris County Flood Control. They took it up and up. They went to the city councils. They went to the county commissioners. They found a falsified flood map, and that is so important in Houston because of how much we flood. I wrote about it, and I thought, dang, this is really going to be the one that gets picked up.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the one that finally gets people. But it was during 2020, and
Yeah, COVID was too much of a strong attention grabber and keeper. And
it was too much.
Yeah.
And even after that, I still advocate for it. I'm like, look, this is still happening. This is still here. If there's one, there's got to be more. But from what I've been seeing and feedback I've gotten over the years, I've had people tell me, hey, Sam, because you've interviewed this organization and it speaks to my struggle, I have joined that organization. I am now in city council. I am now in the county commissioner's court. And I think at this point, I would love to get to the point where everything is grassroots funded. There's no oligarchs. Everything's employee owned and people owned. And I'm sure we can get there. It's far away, but I'm sure we can get there. But until then, I think getting more people activated
Right.
and calling more people in. It's like, oh, you're late to the party. Oh, you're talking liberal stuff, but your heart is like doing more leftist stuff.
Right.
Call them in, bring them in. And I think when we finally get to the point where it's not just 100 people in the room, it's like 1,000 people showing up to city council every week. I think that's the missing piece.
That's what we were talking about last week. That we needed the masses in there, not just the nonprofit workers.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
advocating for
Right.
things. And so I guess my next question is how tied that is to the disillusionment of the voters and honestly the community at large. I think one thing that you mentioned, Biko, that was interesting to me was just like, why aren't people paying attention to the folks who are struggling and who should be voting, who haven't been? I'll tell you why. As a political operative, you are taught to go for the low-hanging fruit. You're not taught to go talk to new voters, to go register voters, to excite them to go vote for the first time ever. You're taught to go talk to the person who's voted in the last 3 primaries. Which is the same electorate that they've talked to forever.
I think. I mean, this is a profoundly. You know, we talk about. We've talked about this a few times. But you know, we have politics. You know, like I said, we have sort of formal politics. This is game theory. You know, and this is what you're talking about. And then we have what I call like lowercase p politics, which is the kind of work that we're thinking about in terms of organizations on the ground, building people power. What's so curious about this? If we're talking about formal like game theory politics, and you were talking about it just now, that seems such a failed strategy to me for people. Even if you're not leftist like many of us are, if you're somewhere even center left, it still doesn't make sense to simply go for the people who've been voting for the last 3 times. Like,
that's why people aren't excited about candidates, because the candidates can't pick a side because they're trying to get some from every side.
see, that's yeah.
So think of it that way, right?
Yeah.
They see
There's
the
no intention.
They see the pie as I need to just grab as much as the pie. I like crust, and I'm team crust. Why would I be going for the pie filling?
See, I guess what I'm.
I don't know. That's a wonky metaphor,
It's,
but
but
you
it's no,
I'll take it.
Actually, no. It makes total sense. I guess what I'm thinking about is like we look at. I'm thinking about 2 things. One, I'm thinking about this 15-1 vote that you just talked about. These
Wait,
people are.
Was that new candidate, Councilmember Joe?
Yeah, he was one of the 15.
Oh, so
He specifically ran on being one of the most progressive people and holding the mayor to account.
Oh,
and then he voted for the budget.
He listed his concerns and then voted yes.
But that and that's what I don't get is like, what happens if he votes no? He's still gonna be it's still gonna pass.
Okay,
But like, what's the
so-
point of going on record like that?
That's what I'm
You
wondering.
know, somebody
so,
commented that.
I'm just wondering about the 15. That's what I think disillusions a lot of potential. I know I won't speak for other people. It would disillusion me if I go to city council and let's say hypothetically, I don't know what district Tarsha Jackson's in, but let's say hypothetically I'm in her district and I'm telling her, listen, this
I think
budget.
it's B.
And listen, and I'm telling her, listen, like there's increase in police funding for this budget. I'm not down for this. I'm using this as an example, right? And she votes for the budget anyway. One of 2 things is going to happen for me if I'm in her district. One, I'm either not going to vote again, which is what a lot of people I think would probably end up doing, or number 2, I'm going to try to find a way to make sure she never gets that seat back.
So that was my thought, right? Like 15-1. Okay. My thoughts are that was a pact. Look, we're all going to vote for this budget, voice our concerns.
Then we got 15 new seats. But then that means we got
That's
15
what I'm
new
thinking.
counselors.
Because society, I would argue that Houstonians are anti-Whitmire today. So I'm thinking an entire anti-Whitmire slate.
Yeah,
Sounds like Whitmire has 15 cronies.
Yeah,
Sounds like we need 15 new city council members.
Because for the new council member, Joe, what's his last name?
Panzarella.
Like now he is in the negative. Now he's got to work his way up, right? Because like out the gate, he just got sworn into.
Well, he sold out his community for what?
Is he at large or is he a district?
Gentrifiers. That's who he sold it
for
out for.
urbanists, bike lanes. I mean,
and that's what I'm saying.
Developers.
Developers, yes.
So the thing is like you guys are looking at the city council people, and that's all great and good, but there's an ecosystem behind them. There's the oil oligarchs, there's the developers, there's the gentrifiers. The gentrifiers specifically, we're looking at weekly homes. Okay, like you can look at the city council people, but you have to look. That's why whenever I interviewed Felix at the kickoff of this budget, I was like, here are the oligarchs. Here are the people you're actually up against. The city council people are figureheads. Like they're Oh, and then like part of why I stopped dealing with politician discourse, was it 2016? I went to the Texas Democratic Party convention. And there was this woman in Houston who was getting ready to run for city council. And she let it slip that she had to ask Sylvester Turner for permission.
No. Are you serious?
I'm serious. So this pact thing that you're talking about, where it's like they all are in like cahoots with each other and the mayor is cronies, 100%. Like, I would not be surprised if some of these people running for city council had conversations with the mayor before they even ran.
No, you wouldn't be surprised. That happened. I would bet all the money in the world that happened. It's the way everything happens.
Yeah, but people don't know that. He was surprised.
Well, okay.
Because I'm thinking about
Biko, you know Ron Hickman owed Republicans things, and so therefore he stood on the side.
I think the thing that I was thinking about, I understand that, but I'm thinking about city council, like that, like asking for like Sylvester Turner's, God bless him, but like asking for Sylvester Turner's like permission to run for a city council. I mean, listening for what it's worth, I also think about that in terms of CD18. I think Christian Menefee's, good, but I'm also like, was he the one who got minted the blessing from, Turner and from Low Key? And so I guess I'm surprised to hear that people are still doing this good old boy backdoor handshake type politics.
The word is politics. That is what politicking is. It is literally, you are on my side or not. You are either going to be my ally on this vote or not. What can I get in order to give you my vote? If I give you my vote, what will you give me? I am sure every city council member voted yes on that budget because Mayor Whitmire said, if you vote no, all the stuff you wanted to get funded next year, it's not going to get funded.
And here's where that class consciousness conversation, I think you're spot on about this.
He already did it to Edward Pollard. Just this past year or last year, he made sure that some of Edward Pollard's programs were not funded, even though they were, in my opinion, law enforcement heavy.
See, right, and that would be a great community journalist piece.
And exactly. And
I'm just saying.
Look, like Edward Pollard or anybody else on a city council member, if that's the situation, if they're like, Whitmire sits them down
twice
and said, not even like, yo, just be brave. Just look at the camera. Like, listen, Whitmire said, if I don't vote yes, I'm not going to have any of these projects that I've been proposing passed ever. So I'm going to vote no, and y'all know now why nothing can get done in my district, because that man said he's going to take away that power. Why not do that?
Because then they'll get an opponent who can argue he didn't get anything done for you because he's not pragmatic and he doesn't know how to work the system.
That's the genuine, I honestly, and this is where I think like class consciousness becomes super, super, super. Y'all know I always talk about the Black Panthers. This not going to be last time. It's definitely not the first. But one of the things Huey Newton makes a claim is like, listen, we've got to find ways to educate the masses, and I think this is part of why your work is so important. We've got to find ways to educate the masses so that they are aware of how these things are directly affecting their communities.
And people have to be willing to write about it. All this information that you have, people don't know. Normies don't know. How are the masses going to come to City Hall if they're not educated, because corporate media is not going to cover it?
The thing is, the Houston Chronicle does cover it. I just think that people don't read.
I mean,
it's just like the politicos who read it,
That's the other piece too.
I read the stuff on the Houston Chronicle. Like the reason I'm not going to every single Houston City Council meeting. I am getting some of my information from them. I would argue that because of how it's written, maybe this like very traditional voice
and paywalled.
Yes, that like
that paywall
it's not touching us because it's like. First of all, you're using jargon and lingo that I have no idea what you're talking about. So why would I read this? Two, it's like paywalled, so I don't want to I don't have money to subscribe to the Houston Chronicle. So I think you're right.
And the way the education system is going, we have to be really, really proactive in synthesizing this information to where it's accessible. When I was going to journalist school, we were taught to synthesize information to an eighth grade level. That is now down to a 6th grade level.
It's down to a 6th grade now.
It's down to a 6th grade
the
level.
average is 6th grade.
That's what I'm saying. So the Houston Chronicle, they may be reporting on it, but there's nothing about it that is accessible to the working class. And that is why I keep advocating for community members, for people who know what's going on, who are in the community, to please report on it. I am one person. I report surface level movements.
I might join your collective
Please,
and learn.
like, because I can't get deep into the issues. I did not know about the budget stuff today. I didn't know what they were doing the red thing because I was over here interviewing the war tax resistance, right? Like, I'm spread thin, and there needs to be people who are nerds in their areas who are being affected, that they can get deeper into each of the issues. And I'm willing to teach.
Yeah,
Please.
I also
we're gonna bring those opportunities. We're gonna bring those opportunities more and more. But we do have a caller, so I want to bring the caller.
Oh, hey,
in.
welcome.
So,
We're over here just like, ah!
hello, caller. Can you hear us?
Hey, y'all, I can hear you. How you doing?
Doing all right.
good.
Yeah. What's your name,
Good,
caller, and what's on your mind?
Yeah, this is Ashley Larry, and I'm out here in Kingwood. I'm a precinct chair, and first I want to tell y'all, like, it's so refreshing to hear folks having these conversations, because I feel like so many of these conversations are the ones that people are having in their heads by themselves, and there's some validation here that's happening, so that's a positive thing for me. One of the things I wanted to touch on and just ask about was, as you guys are talking about grassroots involvement and new people getting involved, I'm new to this, coming into this as a precinct chair, and one of the things that I have noticed is, you know, the elbowsiness of this business, people just getting into it to rub elbows, the organizing on the ground not really happening as a new person coming in with excitement, and also really not being embraced by others that are already in the space doing it, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
You are met with so much skepticism. I feel like, who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? Let us run your social security number and make sure you're one of us. And that's such a deterrent to new people coming into the space. So I wanted to ask you guys' thoughts on that and what you think we can do maybe to combat and do better at that.
I'm going to argue that that's on purpose, specifically in the Democratic Party. I've been in the Democratic Party since 2014 when I supported a gubernatorial candidate. And ever since, I would argue that the local Democratic Party is a clique. And I am so proud of you for running for precinct chair and filling a seat. I don't know if it was vacant before you. They had a lot of vacancies over the last few years because they were simply not engaging new people. I actually worked at the Harris County Democratic Party for some time, about a year or two, organizing the Latinx electorate. And I myself had a hard time breaking into Latinx organizing in the Democratic Party because the old Latino men were like, you haven't been around long enough. You don't belong here. You want to start calling it Latinx. We go by Latino. We don't use that around here. And it was honestly tough. And so what I would argue is you should just keep on keeping on. There are a lot of new people in the Democratic Party who traditionally were pushed out. And I think today we're seeing more new precinct chairs who really have a vision for what the Democratic Party should be. And I feel like there are people like you who are, hungry for change. And I would argue that the people who are keeping you out, it's because they've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, and they don't want to see you change their friend group.
Right. It definitely feels that way. It definitely feels cliquish. And even, again, with Harris County, depending on where you are, even your local clubs in your areas, it's the same thing. You're advised to join all of your local clubs and get to know people in the area. And it's just the same thing over and over. So I appreciate the advice on keeping my foot on the gas. I've been thinking about things I can do singularly to organize my area because, this is Northeast Houston.
And be strategic.
We're the reddest of the red.
Yeah, and be strategic. Keep meeting people, shake hands, kiss babies, but know who your allies are and who is willing to actually, do the work along your side and just start doing it with them. You don't need permission from anyone now that you're a precinct chair.
And if I can add to, Maria's was like spot on with the strategic part. And I'm just sharing this just as a way maybe perhaps to encourage you even more. like
Absolutely.
at the political level, I mean, particularly you're dealing with your precinct chair, and we're super happy to hear that you're invested in working with people in the community on the ground. Also, at the same time, and we've been saying this often, we've been saying this on this show for a few weeks. The other part about it is you need to know the game theory that these old heads are also trying to do, right? And so it's not that it's not that you play the game the way that they play the game, but you know what their strategies are, so that you can concoct a strategy that works
for you and your precinct.
Exactly, right? That is a question of demographics. That's a question of messaging. That's a question of who you can get in contact with, because these folks ultimately, and I was working with some folks here, not the NLC people, and I was working in their training is all about this sort of like cliquish, let's shake hands type thing. That's how certain strategists do their work. But I'm convinced, and I'm with you on this. I'm convinced that if you get everyday people excited about the things that matter for and to them, and I think in many ways Sam's work is demonstrating that people are actually involved and invested. The more people that you can get on the ground and say, listen, can you believe that what they did affects you in this particular way? A lot of people can find ways to get invested and involved in that particular way. So I just share that to say, on the one hand, don't stop. I think Maria's right about that. And number two, know their game theory so that you can develop a strategy that works for you and the people you're working with.
The last thing that I would add is, what do you wish you had? Whatever you wish you had, create that.
Absolutely.
Like
Support.
Yeah, exactly.
A
like,
toolkit.
When I came into community journalism, I went looking for community journalist elders, and I couldn't find any. But I knew that they existed because, independent media's existed forever. But you have to create whatever it is you feel like you needed. And then food. Everybody loves food. Bring people around food. And also, kudos for you for doing work in your lane. Kingwood is a rough area. I'm guilty myself of coming into Houston for political work because I go where political movements are. But being in Kingwood, that's kudos to you for doing work in your lane.
You're flipping the state, doing work in Kingwood.
And actually, I wanted to ask a question regarding plug you into some of the conversations that we've had over the past 2 episodes, because we're talking about flipping Texas and all that. What is your current post on James Tellerico and his campaign?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I actually had high hopes for Tellerico coming into this thing. I am a person, if anyone knows me, that is probably extends benefits of the doubt far beyond what I need to. And I have to say it's pretty disappointing. Words on the street, being around folks who know better, it's just the lack of communication from the Tellerico campaign is really disappointing. The lack of engagement, the lack of interest in anything. And I do believe that there's a strategy behind that. That's just my 2 cents of keeping himself uber clean. But I'm not, again, I'm a pragmatic voter also. I identify as a leftist, but, I'm going to push this area because this is a predominantly white area. I'm going to push this area, and I'm going to push Tellerico because those are the voters that he targets. I will, however, not be engaging the black community unless he chooses to do so, if that makes sense. So that's my thoughts on him and where he's going.
And do you feel like there's enough time for him to improve that and win your vote over, or are you already holding your nose and going to vote blue no matter who? So
yeah, I'm pragmatic. I'm going to vote for James Tellerico, just because I believe in the harm reduction of the whole thing. And again, that's my 2 cents. But I also understand the voters that I've talked to, especially black voters, where they stand and how they feel. And that's something that's hard to combat, especially as a precinct chair. So again, staying in your lane and knowing your role is very important. Being able to relate to people and understand where they come from is really important. He has enough time, I think, to win over some voters, but I do think that some people have their heels dug in from my conversation, and it's just not going to be a solid solution. So I really hope he can do something magical here in the next couple of months, because if not, I am worried about his stats on the black vote.
There is stuff that, because, there's everything's around campaigns and politicians and whatnot. And I hope everything goes well. I don't know if you listened earlier. I have no hope in these things, but I hope things go okay. But in the meantime, while you're organizing, especially in such a white area, getting together, like, anti-racist books and anti-racist book clubs, and starting one yourself with your friends and see who wants to come along. Because I know for me, like, that's a big part of my work as well. Like Deconstructing Karen as a Instagram page that I follow, and White Awakening. I know that sounds terrifying.
We've had too many of those.
I know that sounds terrifying, but it provides frameworks for white people to reconnect to their ancestry and to reconnect to their cultures. So that's work I've been doing in my lane, in between things. And Kingwood is, like I said, kudos for even attempting. But I think you're going to do awesome, because you're out here starting it. So
absolutely. And
Thank
Ashley,
you
I
so
appreciate
much.
you so much for calling in. I hope to have you call back again as we continue to have these conversations on a weekly basis and we get closer to November. Also hear from what you're seeing on the ground on your side of town, and just seeing if maybe all this talk and conversation and activity could bring us closer to better candidates, most importantly, and hopefully better representatives. So I appreciate your call.
We love updates.
Yes.
We would love updates in the coming months, just to see what's going down out there in Kingwood. And I just want to continue, as everyone else has, just to encourage you to continue doing that work you are doing, as the church folks say, the Lord's work. And so I just want you to, I want to encourage you, as the old church mothers would say, to just keep going, keep standing, keep doing that fight. It's super important.
Yes, thank you for the work that you do.
I appreciate y'all so much. Thank y'all for the work that you're doing, being a group of young people that's talking about this. Because, again, as y'all know, trying to get voters out in our age range is one of the toughest things to do, because I think there's so many that are disillusioned.
Yep.
But we're going to keep fighting the good fight. I'm going to stay out here. We're going to keep focused on the issues that matter to people and block out the noise. And that's my job. That's what we're going to do. And I'd love to keep y'all updated. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
dang, that was good.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that.
The reality is, like, this is what it takes for this work to be effective.
Yeah.
Not just the journalism of it all and the community journalism of it all, but also the precinct chairs of it all, right? People don't even know that what a precinct chair is.
Can we explain?
Yes, go ahead, please. This is education time. Maria's going to help us out.
This is more primary
Maria,
source material. Primary source material.
Well, it was like Sesame Street. It's like, we're going to learn about precinct chairs with Maria.
I love this.
Oh, I wish I could have prepared. Okay, well, I'm just going to do it on
anyway,
the
yes,
I'm
yes.
going to do it on the spot. But practically, if I were being cringy, I'd say the precinct chairs are the backbone of the Democratic Party. That's what they say all the time, and that is a literal fact. These are the people who are organizing their neighborhood on a day-to-day basis, ensuring that their neighbors are, one, aware of, I guess, if it's a party, it's the party's issues. The platform of the party, they are getting out the vote for every single election. Ooh. It is a thankless job, and it is one of the hardest jobs you could practically have, because you are invigorating all of your neighbors to care about an election, and you have to figure out how. So you need to know your neighbors, like actually intimately know your neighbors. In order for her to become a precinct chair, she had to be elected. So she was actually on the ballot, and people voted for her, which means that she had to knock on every door in her neighborhood, tell them about herself, why she cares about the Democratic Party, and why she should be the representative of her precinct. Those precinct chairs have a lot of power within the Democratic Party. They get to vote on platforms of the Harris County Democratic Party. Most recently, they flexed their muscles and their power by ousting Mayor Whitmire from the Democratic Party. And some really good organizers worked on that, where they practically held him to account. You've been a city council leader for how many years? And all you've done is push forward Republican policies and support Republicans. You do not represent the Democratic Party, and therefore you should not be part of it. And a majority of precinct chairs voted to oust Mayor Whitmire, to prove to him that you can't just say that you're a Democrat. You have to actually walk the walk.
Right. And just for note, this is the same man who was a state legislator and rallied and voted against putting air conditioners inside of the Texas prisons that reach over 110 degrees during the summertime. Like, he said, money for that? No, let them suffer.
My God.
So, I mean, the cruelty is the point, I guess, and I don't know if that's what the Democrats have been about like that, but I think that's more of a Republican brand, so just wanted to throw that out there. So, yes, precinct chairs.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the gist of it. They have power to shift the Democratic Party locally and its values and priorities, and then they have power to get people out to vote for, primary elections and in the primary election, technically they can't choose.
Right.
They have to wait until after the primaries to get out the vote in November. But they flex their muscles. They're networking. They're endorsing candidates, and they're making decisions for their neighborhoods. And so it's a very important role. A lot of precinct chair positions are actually vacant. So I would encourage everyone to check and see. You could reach out to the Harris County Democratic Party. Usually they have a directory. I'm not sure if today they have a directory because they had a shift in leadership, but they have a directory of who your precinct chair is. You can reach out to them, help them organize and coordinate. And if there isn't one, then there's an opportunity for you to get involved and for you to knock on your neighbors' doors and to be one of those decision makers in our local Democratic Party.
So the more progressive precinct chairs
the more we want. Yes.
The more progressive precinct chairs we can get, the more that we can. And I think that's a way. If I heard Ashley correctly, this is a way for us to get involved with community folks who are doing the resistance work, and also place them in conversation with precinct chairs who are saying, and so these community folks can say, listen, this is what matters to us, right?
This is us using the establishment as a means of, as a tool
to get what people need.
I think we need to be aware of the bounds of the Democratic Party, of the limits of the Democratic Party. But this is definitely an avenue for organizers to at least locally shift the conversation that Democrats are having. I think it's especially important now that we're seeing that our city council members, although they may espout progressive values, do not live progressive values. And therefore, I do think that precinct chairs have the power to, we've already kicked one elected official out of the Democratic Party. What if Democrats were the Republicans do this perfectly well. Right. Donald Trump has created this insane movement, and it started with the Tea Party, but Trump is now like, there's Trumpism, I would say, like,
that is a thing,
where
Trumpism.
Everybody that he endorses has been winning their primary elections. And if Republicans are saying, you know what, you need to be far right enough for us to support you, I feel like leftists have an opportunity to do the same thing.
Right. And perfect segue. Thank you, because I've been wanting to get to this conversation. And Sam, since you are like unaware of all this I'm about to tell you, I definitely want to get a lot of your initial reaction, because you brought up awakening whiteness, right? And this work around white people and their identity and how they affect non-white people, people of color, black people, and Latino people, and all sort. And currently looking through the lens of how we just mentioned Tellerico, right? Not really appealing, not really outreaching. But we're going to take the conversation to Maine. Because in Maine, there's a Senate race that last night just wrapped up their primary, and the Democrat that won for the primary for the Democrats,
Graham Plattner.
And he's been coming up a lot because they're looking at him as this very blue collar, class warfare, populist, just candidate who's just smashing through. I mean, the person who ran against them in the primary is the current governor of Maine, a Democrat. And she dropped out over a month ago because the polls were showing they do not want your establishment politics, right? But here's the thing. Graham Plattner came out on the front end of it and said, listen, I was a combat veteran. I had to deal with a lot of the PTSD, and then I coped with a lot of drugs, and I was abusive at one point, like just not a good person to be around. And then I turned my life around, and I am now, getting better every day, but I have some questionable behavior in the past that I'm not proud of, and I just want to put that out there. Okay. And in the months since, it's including last week, because, the primary being this week, they were trying to dump that, what they will call October surprise type of thing right before the primary. And, there was some interviews with women that were his exes saying that he was a little bit unsettling. They didn't report that he actually abused them in any specific physical way or anything. They just said, he was just not very nice and he made me feel uncomfortable. But the one that had people paying attention to Graham Plattner the most was a Nazi tattoo that he had on himself years ago. And some Reddit posts that were questionable that he front-ended on that, right? The Nazi tattoo had been covered a long time since, and he explained that when he was in the military, young 20s, out in Europe, stationed with his buddies, they went out drinking in Poland or something like that, and they went into a tattoo shop, and he picked the cool thing that he saw and said, yeah, I want that on me. But he didn't realize that in these parts of Europe, a lot of people have fascinations or love for Nazi emblems and such like that. So he didn't realize he had just selected a tattoo with the Nazi emblem on him or some type of imagery. He had it covered up. So he won in a landslide last night. And the establishment Democrats are scrambling to try to figure out how now to maybe work with him, because they were really the ones behind all this exposing information, trying to make him lose the primary. And now we have to look at this dynamic where we have James Tellerico in Texas, who's a pastor, and is presenting himself as Ashley said, right, trying to be clean and not have anything affect him, right, and whatever his decision making is. But then you have Graham Plattner, who is all the red flags for people who are worried about extremism and fascism through the white supremacy lens. But he is saying that he is a changed man, and then he doesn't hold those beliefs.
And his policy platform is super far left.
His policy platform is super far left, very populist, very focused on the wealth inequality. And his support is all around, and they're almost making him like the face of the leftist movement in the country. So
wow,
that's a whole lot. What are your initial thoughts on that?
My initial thoughts on it is that, okay, so I sit at the intersection of journalism and marketing. I love where people and content meet. I love where people and ads meet. How do people engage with messages? How do they engage with content? How do people engage with things that are curated? Mm-hmm. How do they engage with propaganda? Mm-hmm. And the Democratic Party, the consultants, are marketers. They're very good at curating personalities. They know their target audience. They know their target demographics. They're going to curate what they think is the most pristine version of what these audiences want. And because of AI, I'm gonna go here. I think we're finally reaching a point where we want to see each other as human.
That's a good point.
And what this guy does, even though he's problematic and he's repentant and all this stuff, he's really shown his vulnerability in a way that makes him human, in a way that a pastor, because there's even power dynamics with pastors. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's still an image, there might be a nice curated, clean image of pastors, but do
you really know your pastor?
Do you really know your pastor?
Or is he the guy on stage?
Yeah, exactly. And these are dynamics that we deal with in the South. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're really entering, okay, so I shout out to the US Space. It's a co-working space in Houston. I recently did a lunch and learn where it's how to shape your brand with AI. spoiler alert, you don't actually use AI.
Okay, because I was going to be like, no.
Exactly.
No. But we go into building your brand, and it's like, what is your most unshakable core human mission? Your most unshakable thing as a human. And I think that's what we're getting into, because people can't tell what's real or not. They don't want curated. They want human.
Sam, I love that you say that, because last week I said people would prefer Donald Trump's messy self.
Absolutely. That's why he's
over
won twice.
a perfect Kamala.
Exactly. 1,000,000 times over.
Well, curated, but you get what I mean. Not perfect necessarily, but you know what I mean.
And I want to bring them in. And
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, my bad. I do want to bring a caller, and that's true. I do want to add that Maine population is 90% white. So honestly, like, I really don't care if they choose Grand Plantner, because it makes sense that a whole bunch of white people are comfortable with somebody who had Nazi emblems on themselves is now going to be the representative or the senator, right?
I think there's
so
we need to do the caller, and then
Layers to
unpack
it.
some more
Well,
of
caller,
that.
what is your name and what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. This is a cup of coffee.
Hey, cup of coffee.
Hey.
Oh, it's a cup of coffee.
I love
I'm
that.
hearing some music in the background.
Oh, are you hearing music in the background?
Is it good music?
I don't have any music on.
Yeah. What I could do is hang up and call back. Are y'all hearing me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Listen, that's interesting. You brought up personality. When it comes to these politicians. And here's a curious question, though. What do you think attracts people? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a whole nother conversation going on in the background, but let's examine Donald Trump, right? He's not curated. He's just a flawed character, right?
Flawed's a strong term, but yes, he's a person.
Deeply.
Right. And see, I don't, this is unsuccessful and ineffective to demonize Trump, because he still sits at the top of the world, right? So, what do you think people, when these politicians run, and they try to dress themselves up as the Pope, you think the public is buying that, or they say to themselves, this person, when he gets up there in Washington D.C., they're not going to get anything done.
No, I hear you. I'm hopping in here because I think there's a lot of dynamics that are involved relative to particularly Donald Trump, Ken Paxton, and for what it's worth, Graham Plattner. The thing that we don't, the thing that people get upset about, and we don't want to political correctness, whatever. All three of these people are white guys, right? And so it's super important to keep that in mind. That all three of these people are white guys. One. Number two, particularly as it relates to Donald Trump, I can't speak for Plattner. Paxton's a whole nother story. With Donald Trump, what his white guyness, the fact that he is a white man, he's doing something that's central to what white men do, which is he is constantly painting himself as the good guy, irrespective of what's going down. This is not, I'm not making this up. This is not me. This is not me cooking this up. This is actually, I write about this, I research this, and there's something very specific about white maleness that tries to exonerate itself all the time.
The white knight.
Yes,
the man
absolutely.
in the white hat.
And so what he does, and you heard this in 2016 and in 2020 and 2020, I'm the person who can save us. And this message of a white guy saying that he can save people, for a lot of white people who are in spaces that they're not hearing anything else, they don't have any other way of thinking about it, they are trapped in their own narratives of whiteness, they hear that and they feel seen. And so his flaw, this is what I mean by his flaws aren't flaws to them, they're strengths to these people. And so
you're absolutely right.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. His opponents see it as a flaw, but the people who support him see it as an asset.
I see it as a moral failing. I see it as an absolute moral and political. The man is a terrible person. Like his soul is bad, and I'm not, and I'm not. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to share that with you, just to say, like, yeah, it's.
Are you saying that the American public?
Some of them, yes.
Because he's elected.
Yes.
He's an elected official.
You need to think of the audience, right?
Right.
Like, who sees him that way?
Right.
And it is other fascists and other racists and other misogynists.
100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely.
So to them, it's not a flaw. It is something
a
that
strength
they
for them.
admire.
Exactly. I think I love this. I love this, Maria. Thank you. You cup of coffee. You asked if America's soul is messed up. There's a philosopher named Cornel West. He makes the claim that there's a spiritual drought in this country. It's been this way since at least the 80s when people elected Ronald Reagan, right? Mm-hmm. This is not new. The other piece, but we can go back further than that. What people do not understand, and I think it's really crucial for us to understand as we look at a fascist in office, when Hitler rose to power, he rose to power under the normalization of a particular kind of racial and political resentment. So the hatred didn't feel like hatred to most of these folks. It was, we lost.
It tapped into an insecurity that the nation was feeling due to their economic struggles.
1,000%. They lost World War
I. I guess my question has to do with the opponent, though.
Right.
How does the opponent defeat this? If we accept your narrative. If you guys are in the consulting business, okay, and if you're in the strategic business,
right,
the strategic conversation business, let me put it to you like that, okay, you're in the strategic conversation business. If you have an opponent that you guys say you prefer over the guy we just talked about, Donald Trump, and other people on his side, how do you overcome? How do you put together a winning idea?
I don't have a really good answer for you. But I would respond the way that I hear people like Sam responding, and again, because I talk about these people all the time, I think about the Black Panthers, and one of the things that they make clear is you have to continue to do your work on the ground, irrespective of the way that the government moves. Right. So if we're, again, there's a game theory involved in electoral politics. You might win, you might not. The Democratic Party at the national level, their leadership, their strategy seems to be, if the person's not Trump, that should be good enough. But on the ground here, and you can see this all over the place. I think we see it in New York City with Mandela. We always talk about him for sure, but you can see this all over in different progressive pockets. There are ways and there are historical precedents for this. And I'm thinking specifically of Black Panthers in California for sure, but also people in Chicago as well. You build up people power within your own communities. And after a while, you begin to find ways to where the government becomes less and less important for you, and you become less and less dependent on the government. And I'm not saying, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that you don't ever depend on the government at all, but it creates the possibility, I think, of living a different kind of life where you're not constantly preoccupied.
And I want to take a little stab at that question that you put in there at the end. A cup of coffee is that Biko is 100% correct, and it's part of the mission statement that we have in my philosophy is that local organizing is important, because if you lock down your city, your county, then whatever the state legislator does becomes less and less effective, because you are building barriers. And hopefully your city and your county then produces state legislators who could go and put up a bigger fight. And if this is done everywhere, then all of a sudden it becomes a standstill, because they can't penetrate these local powers that the people built up, right? And that's the first step. But then when you have national elections and they want to come around and bring their candidates and be like, hey, this is who's going to be running for president, get behind our guy, then those pockets, those cities, those holding centers can become more effective in saying, well, we don't like their platform. Exactly. You need to change it.
This is what we want.
And hopefully, that produces a different dynamic that we can now say that breaks up the electoral politics that we've been kind of like cursed with for the past 50 years or so. But then when it comes to like how counteract like what something like the Trump did and with the white identity, look, I appreciate what Sam said about, people just want to see the flaws in, like, because it's honest. And I believe the same thing, too. Like, we can be honest about the racial dynamics and how we're tired of certain white issues being our issues.
Right.
And they could say about how they don't like this, what they see in black people, and what they don't like what they see in the Latino community and all these things. Right. But if they don't live in those communities and those communities are organized and they have the representatives, they can't say nothing about what they got going on there. It's just their opinion. And then they got to deal with the negotiating facts of, you want this vote from our end, then this white mess that you have over here, we don't like it. Do something about it. Have your conversations. Have your little gathering circles and do what you got to do. And then hopefully that dynamic starts just kind of weeding out the curated, processed, just manufactured candidates that we got to keep dealing with. So I feel like that's my offering to you. But I appreciate your cup of coffee, because we're going to be closing out. And thanks for calling, and we hope to hear from you again.
He said last comment.
Let me get this last comment in. It's amazing to me, but are you saying that at this late date that there's an organizational and leadership problem?
Yes.
What?
I'd say that there's always been one. An organizational and leadership problem in the country and in the Democratic Party?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I give a lecture every so often about how our founding fathers are white supremacists.
All the way down.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson has a
Thank you,
piece
cup of coffee.
on the notes of state of the notes of Virginia, where he makes it sort of very clear that this is part of absolutely.
Yeah, no. So I outline 3 of the founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson.
Yep.
And I pull quotes. I pull all their information specifically about why they were white supremacists. So when people say, "Oh, our founding fathers wouldn't be," yes, they'd be into this. They would love him.
Yeah.
I mean, slavery.
Did we all?
I mean, yeah, like they, and that's
This
the
is
thing.
an organizational leadership problem.
This is a perfect moment to just plug in the fact that next week is Juneteenth, which is the real Liberation Day that I like to celebrate, because the 4th of July, Independence Day, it was just landowners, rich people saying we don't want to pay taxes and we're going to fight a war over it. And all right, we're free, but y'all still got to be enslaved. And so we have to remind ourselves of that. And that's why they're tearing down all the black history that they can. And they're propping back up all their civil Confederate statues that they want. And like, we just got to be 100% honest about that. We can't just tiptoe around that issue. Like, this country was founded on white supremacist ideologies and colonialism, and we're supposed to be evolving from that. And the expectation is to be just be honest about it. Like,
and like, even when you go to Galveston during Juneteenth, they have like tour buses and whatnot for Juneteenth, and even on those it says free-ish.
Yeah.
No, this is true. It's absolutely. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Stephen.
I was just gonna say, because the truth is, if George Washington was walking around and saying hell yeah to all these white race supremacy thing and all that stuff, he'd probably get the horse teeth smacked out of him, and that's about it. Like,
I think I get elected for president again.
I think
today.
I think
that's literally what happened.
I absolutely agree with what everybody said. I think the only difference that I would say between these founders and someone like Donald Trump is that Donald Trump's politics is marked by a particular kind of like racial hatred and animus. For the white supremacists of the founding fathers of the republic, it was just normal for white people to be superior. Like they weren't like sitting over here like, how do I hate these people? It was like, yo, these people are inferior to us. That's why we enslave.
No,
this is
but they like think
so
about,
white supremacy
like,
was normal.
No,
1,000. Go ahead.
Like, was it John Brown? That's one of the there were white abolitionists.
1,000%. Oh, 100%. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Them.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not disagreeing with you on that at all. I'm just simply saying the difference between a Donald Trump and maybe a Thomas Jefferson or George Washington is this emotional affective thing. Is that Trump operates, and many of his followers operate, on racial hatred. These earlier guys are white supremacists in the sense of they just assumed that they were better than everybody.
I would argue that they were also operating with racial hatred.
Say more.
Because they were actively colonizing land because they thought that they were dehumanizing natives because and indigenous people because they thought that they were better than them. Maybe now there's a word for it, but they were that regardless of whether the vocabulary.
I guess what I would say is like I hear you. I was thinking in terms of like maybe it's like natural. You think about natural science or whatever. Like for these folks now, granted, it took some time to get here. I'm talking about Washington, Jefferson. If you go back further, if you go 1500s, 1600s, you are dealing with hatred. You're dealing with a particular kind of animus that's going down. I think for those folks, these ideologies had been settled in place such that it was, the indigenous folks are just like, we're just better than them. Like it was like for them, and we're just better than them when it came to black. I think this is why Thomas Jefferson could be with Sally Hemings and claim that it's a quote unquote loving relationship. Like this is a black woman who's enslaved to him, and he can who's enslaved to him, and he can claim that he's in love with her because for him she's just inferior to he. I'm so with you in terms of like how brutal and nasty this white supremacy is. But I look at someone like Thomas Jefferson, and you can only get to that place. It's similar to Eichmann, where he's like, listen, I had Jewish friends too, but I was a Nazi. Like there's a certain way that like, and this is not to push back against the brutality, but it is to say Donald Trump runs on hatred. Thomas Jefferson was like, these people are just inferior.
But you're describing the Trump supporter who voted for him for quote unquote economic reasons. I have black friends. I actually don't believe in the deportations, and I don't believe in the detention centers.
You are absolutely correct.
But he actually supports me and my community, and I know that I need him in order to be better. That's still
100%. That's exactly right.
It's all one and the same.
Exactly.
If a person voted for Trump for economic reasons versus racial hatred, I still think there must be racial hatred within them because they're aware of the racial I don't even know what to call it, violence that they are actively pushing on people.
It's such a curious piece. I'm just sharing this story because I think you're onto something here. It was the day after the election in 24. I was in Syracuse. That's where I was before I came back down here, and I had to get an Uber to get to class. And my Uber driver is like, so did you follow the election results last night? And I tell this white guy, and I tell him, listen, like, yes, I did. I don't want to talk about it. And I can tell my Uber driver this, like, listen, like, I don't, because I don't have a car. So anyway, and so he proceeds to talk about it. Well, actually, Donald Trump won, and he says to me, and I told him, I said, listen, I don't want to talk about this. He says, listen, I'm actually kind of happy Trump won because gas prices are going to go down, right? And so it is this, and yet, for him, in his mind, he didn't think about this by way of racism or anything like that, and yet he has some semblance that there is a violence that is associated with Donald Trump that he's willing to overlook.
My mind goes to Mexicans and Latinos for Trump. Right? They may argue, I'm not racist. I am one of them. How could you say I'm racist?
Right.
And yet they have this racial hatred towards their own people simply because they want to distance themselves from them.
Mike Thiel came here in the 80s, like illegally, and he is such a Trump supporter. And he's like, anyone who comes in illegally needs to be deported. I was like, bitch, you just got your citizenship like 5 years ago.
And that's racial hatred. That's racial hatred. Whether it's internalized or not, it still is there.
Right. No, I'm with you on that part.
No, but all right. So as we wrap in, I just want to say this is the second time that we just tapped on the Latino dynamic when it comes to this Trump support, white supremacy, Republican association. We're getting there. We're gonna have that episode where we're gonna go in and all the conversations around the Latino, Hispanic identity, and that all these things. But like, we have to understand how important this dynamic is operating, because right now Trump is looking at Latin America, and there were some tapes that came out where the former president of Honduras, who was released from U.S. prisons after being convicted for drug trafficking, pardoned by Trump, all of a sudden he's now back in the game in the Honduran government.
Don't talk to me about Latin American politics.
Right.
The rise of fascism is happening in Latin America as well as in Europe and
but
here.
this is not a big story. But it should be, because they basically have the tapes saying where they're plotting, and they mention Israel and Netanyahu, Trump, and then this Honduran president as like the Latin American representative that's going to help, flip all these other countries to,
There's already a few.
And right now, Colombia is in a runoff between the Trumper, and Trump has already endorsed him, and the more leftist candidate who's following behind the current leftist president, who Trump has been, egging on some, like, you're also a narco-terrorist. I might have to come and get you like I did Maduro. Anyways, I say all that to say we're going to have that conversation because it's necessary. Latinos need to, like, get their identity straight. They have to understand who they are, where they come from, what whiteness exists, and then how that shows up in our politics every day, because you're not white. In this country.
Can I hop in here and
Yes.
throw a prompting question for when we do this? Because it's something that I've been thinking about, and actually I teach this in my classes. Are the issues that we're seeing, and you all talking about Latinx communities, I think about black support for Trump, which is on the rise, particularly with black males. Is this part of human beings being pretty terrible? That's my, like, are we as a species pretty or is this limited to particular communities?
There's that dynamic.
Like, that's like
No. It's everyone. You know the answer to this.
I'm curious. I want us to explore it. Yeah.
Think of it this way, right? I think in any moment, a government will try to exploit their people's senses of insecurity, and globally I think people have the least power. I feel like I read somewhere that our social stratification is larger than it was back when, like, kings and queens existed.
I know. It's pretty bad.
So think of it as, like, fascism is on the rise, and it is a tool that these people are being brainwashed into becoming fascists because they believe that that's what they need in order to get the power that that's been taken away from them by the government.
The class power.
Yes.
This is a question. It's a question. Yeah, go ahead. We gonna continue.
And that's going to happen to anyone.
And these are the topics that we're going to be touching on because it's necessary. It's part of political education and all these things. But I want to go ahead and wrap up. And Sam, thank you so much for being our
Sam.
guest.
You have been amazing. Thank you.
If there's one thing I can end with real quick is, like, I don't know for anybody listening, but for me personally, I peep in on international news. I try to peep in on federal news, but I mostly focus on local movements and state movements as much as I can. Yeah. I can't do jack about international. I don't feel like I can do much about federal. Even with state, I don't know how much of it I can really contribute to. But I know I can be in community with Houstonians that are going to city council. I know when the Harris County budget comes up, especially as someone who lives in Harris County, I can be part of that conversation. And I know I can go to the food bank and help there. I know I can, the war tax resistance that I just interviewed today, there's a movement happening in that area in Houston. These are things that are close to me, that I can tangibly see people and be part of and do. So when you guys are having these conversations, I am begging y'all to translate this into your backyard. I am begging you to show up in your backyard, because knowing all this information about which politicians doing what and in international, it's all great, especially when we get into, like, praxis conversations about colonialism, global white supremacy, oligarchs, and those kinds of things, watching patterns play out, not just microcosmically, but macro as well. But please show up in your backyard. When it gets overwhelming, take a break, touch the dirt. And for every struggle, there is a movement. You are not alone, even though the corporate media wants you to think that you are. You are not alone in whatever struggle you are in, but you just have to, like, tap into your backyard.
And where can we find you and best follow your work?
And all your resources that you're offering us, too.
For sure. So if you look up, like, if you just Google Sam Oser, SAMOSER, you will find me. Sam Oser Houston, Googleable. Everything is there. First and second page. If you need to look up unconventional journalist, Google unconventional journalist Houston. Everything first, second page. I don't know if it's going to pull me up on chat, but I do know I am searchable. And if you're on Instagram, you can follow me at Sam the Mullet. That's mullet, like the haircut, business in the front, party in the back. I just love the spirit of that.
Right,
business in the front, party in the back.
Yeah.
Like, I do not have a mullet, maybe one day, but I love the spirit of that haircut. So it's at Sam the Mullet on Instagram. I am the most active on that one. You could find me on Facebook. You could find me on Twitter, but that's not where I live.
We will be making sure that folks find you and pass that along. And to my co-host, I like to say thank you, Biko. You got anything going on that you're looking forward to?
Oh no, I mean I'm looking forward, like I said, to seeing how this game go. But other than that, no, we've got, I'm looking forward to just continuing these conversations with you all. I've got some pieces that I'm thinking about relative to like James Baldwin and some other stuff that I'm working on right now that I'd love to hear you all's thoughts on. But other than that, it's always fun. And it's always wonderful to hang out with y'all and talk. So yeah.
Absolutely. Maria, how about you? Anything going on before we log out?
No, I'm just looking forward to next week from 7 to 9 p.m. on Wednesday.
Me too. It's been exciting. I'm getting better at this. I'm playing with all the things, and I'm not losing track of what I got going on. But I would like to appreciate or express my appreciation to everybody who has tuned in, who has called in, who has participated. We're growing this from the ground up, roots and all, and you're a part of this. So please make sure that you're doing one simple function, which is like and subscribe and all that stuff, but also pass it along to your friends and family, people that you know. Talk about politics, talk about what's going on locally, or talk about wanting to do something. You can't start doing anything at least with some information, and that's what we're here to do, provide you with some information. So please make sure that you're passing us along. We'll be here next week. Thank y'all, everybody, for being here. We are done. That is Talking Politics with Friends, and we out.
Thank you, Sam.
All right.